At this point, you have nothing but questions for Peacekeeper, but it turns out he's already aware of who or what you encountered in the swamp. He's got a man looking into strange lights and noises coming not only from the swamp, but various locations around Tarkov, where specific rooms are adorned with various religious sigils and altars. It appears some group or cult has sprung up in Tarkov, convinced that the world unraveling around them is a sign of the end times, and that only offerings of weapons and human sacrifice will bring them salvation. But there's one problem. Peacekeeper's man has gone missing, and he needs you to complete the task of finding these locations. At first, you refuse, but days later, angrily staring at your empty M4 magazines and bullet-riddled ballistic plates, and only a half-eaten can of Tushonka left to eat, you need work. So, you agree. You determine that the risk of running into these psychos is greater than getting into a gunfight with scavs or PMCs. So you hunt for these so-called marked circles or marked rooms in the daytime. Turns out this was almost a mistake, as various operators in the area have begun to rely on the offerings of these cults and make frequent visits to these areas in the daytime. At the dorms area and customs in particular, you barely escaped with your life when you ran into 2 separate squads of USEC that were attempting to lock down the area for themselves. Before heading out to the last ritual spot on Shoreline, you had to take a trip to therapist to treat a broken leg you sustained when jumping out of a second-story window of the dormitory. With one last beacon to place, you head towards the old health resort, and you wisely decide to wait until Starfall to actually go inside that godforsaken place. During the day, this little patch of real estate is typically exploding with violence as the bears attempt to wrestle control of the place from the entrenched USEC. But at night, both sides scurry home to lick their wounds, and so you decide this is the best time to snoop around the place. While searching the east wing, with nothing but the sound of broken glass and countless shell casings under your feet, you spot a dim glow from down the dark hallway. The light flickers, and it looks like candles. This has to be the spot. You slowly make your way towards the doorway, and the sound of flies and the sickly sweet smell of putrefaction stings and assaults your senses. I fucking hate this place, you think to yourself, and consider turning 180 degrees and leaving the way you came. But you turn into the room anyways, and immediately freeze in place. Hanging from the ceiling are the decaying husks of pigs, and what you assume is a mixture of both animal and human blood covering almost every surface. Written on the floors and walls are all kinds of strange symbols and hieroglyphs, and then, in the corner, the body of a freshly deceased local with the head of a pig placed over his own in a bathtub full of blood. You activate your marker and throw it into the tub, running out of the resort and into the night, never once looking back. You wait quite some time before returning to Peacekeeper. You've told yourself that if he has you running any more jobs involving these cultists, you'll probably refuse. But this time, he has a new line of work for you. He wants to set up an operation in the health resort, manufacturing some kind of substance or chemical. Something that has to do with making the lives of the surviving civilians trapped in Tarkov easier. But he is adamant with you that you are not to tell anyone what's going on there. And to prove your loyalty, you must hand over $8,000 US. But if you comply, the future rewards will be worth it. You reluctantly agree, and then Peacekeeper gives you a shopping list of items he'll need to make this substance. Propane canisters, metal tubing, alkali surface washer, bleach and other household cleaners, injectors, and solvents. You look over the list and realize Peacekeeper is going to make narcotics. He's going to cook up drugs in the health resort with his troops and then distribute these to the locals. You begin to wonder how he learned how to make this stuff, but shrug it off and collect the required items. With Peacekeeper's drug lab now operational in the health resort, he seems to have taken an interest in all kinds of various drugs and narcotics that can be found in the Tarkov area. In one meeting, he suggested a few of the combat stimulators that are often found on the raiders in the area may have been produced by Terragroup, and that many of their effects are unknown. Tasking you to find as many of these injectors as possible, he believes that by analyzing them, he can provide conclusive proof as to whether or not Terragroup did in fact manufacture these mysterious drugs. Luckily for you, the previous day you'd been searching for some fresh water around the reserve base outskirts and managed to put a lone scav out of his misery that seemed high out of his mind, staring into the sun. In his pockets were one of these new stimulators, but also an access card to the Terragroup lab area. The place was evacuated on short notice, and you had no trouble finding a large collection of these drugs. One of your former squad mates, who has now been long deceased, once gave you a black area key card, and it's in this room where you found the majority of the injectors. He felt a certain unease while in this room. Clearly, it was some kind of medical observation room with a large camera to observe some poor soul that was most likely trapped inside the glass cage, possibly strapped to a gurney. Who knows what kind of depraved experiments were conducted here. You check the camera for cassette tape, but the slot is empty. Returning the samples to Peacekeeper, in just a few hours he verifies that these stimulators are in fact products of the Terragroup Corporation. Not only that, but Peacekeeper sourced valuable information from the dealer known as Mechanic that the strange doctor on Shoreline, Sanitar, was in fact a Terragroup employee, saying only that he's been divorced, has medical training, and specializes in infectious diseases. He had an office in the lab, and if you can gain access and find out anything else about him, he would reward you with a large stockpile of M4s and ammunition. It takes many days and nights, but you eventually pull an unused lab's access card out of the pack of a dead raider after an intense firefight that nearly cost you your life. In addition, you had to pay a large sum of the little money you have to purchase a key card that gains access to Sanitar's office and the labs on the black market. Heading back to the lab, you locate and gain entry to Sanitar's old office, which appears to be nothing more than a glorified janitor's closet. Stuck in the side of a laptop is a flash drive which may contain what you seek, and after grabbing it, you notice the office is littered with all kinds of injectors. Bringing the drive back to Peacekeeper, he notes that the drive contains extremely valuable information, and while he can't tell you everything, he does let you in on the fact that Sanitar did in fact create many unknown drugs and even tested them on human subjects. The story of Peacekeeper is far from finished, and many secrets are yet to be discovered. While focused on enriching himself and also working with Western intelligence, is near to exposing major secrets about the Terragroup Corporation and their interests in bioengineering and human testing. Meanwhile, Peacekeeper is barely managing to keep the UN operation in Tarkov afloat, as he is constantly battling scandals and bad press, with Blue Helmet forces barely being able to contain the ongoing violence. At some point, we will learn if Peacekeeper will be able to continue his operations in Tarkov long enough to expose these secrets, and when that happens, I'll be here to tell the tale. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Dealers of Tarkov. There's actually a lot more going on with Peacekeeper that I omitted from this video because the quest lines are very unfinished and abruptly end without any kind of satisfying ending or even a cliffhanger. The questlines Cargo X and Wet Job are both unfinished and seem to allude to some kind of mysterious Terragroup cargo, as well as Terragroup colluding with some former Russian naval officer on the acquisition of long-range ballistic missile engines for a Typhoon-class nuclear submarine. This may tie in somewhat to our nuclear Tarkov video, which, if you haven't seen it, a link is in the description. I'm sure over time these quests will be more fleshed out, and I'll definitely make a video to explain the finale to these stories whenever that happens. These videos take a lot of time and effort to create, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd sincerely appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. There's so many more stories to tell, so there will be new videos soon, but until then, I'm Jeff with EUL Gaming. Good luck out there.